Approaches to language teaching were developed as a response to the demands of the social and economic context at the moment. This presentation will describe how some of them are used for different purposes, as well as their features for instructional design. Communicative language teaching. Richard and Rogers state that the elements of CLT are communication principle. In this principle, we can find activities that involve real communication, and those activities support or foster the language learning. The second element is task principle. In this principle, we can find activities in which the learners have to execute tasks or meaningful tasks that promote language learning. The third element is meaningfulness, and this principle simply says that meaningful language supports the language process or the learning process. Therefore, CLT activities are selected according to the way they engage students in meaningful and authentic language use, rather than mechanical practice of the language. These authors also argue that the levels of objectives proposed by PFO are integrative and content level, linguistic and instructional level, interpersonal relationships level, and individual learning level, among others. Regarding communicative syllabus types, Richard and Rogers mention Jordan's classification, which are structural, functional, task-based, interactional, and notional. The frequent activities in this approach are functional communication activities and social interaction activities. When it comes to the needs analysis, this can be done through one-to-one sessions in which the teacher talks about the student's perception of their learning style or learning goals, etc. When it's done formally, a needs assessment instrument is required. This instrument contains items that investigates the student's motivation. Competency-based language teaching. Richard and Rogers explain that it is based on functional and interactional position. Therefore, it aims at teaching language in relation to the social context. When learners have specific needs and roles, CBLT is applied as a framework for language teaching. The notion of communication competence helps to foster functional communication skills. These authors also affirm that the curriculum framework, the syllabus, and the strategies, among others, are supported by competencies.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carlos Nolasco. Here's what I'm going to share with you in this presentation. Content-based instruction, lexical approach, and grammar translation approach. Let's take a look.
Content-based instruction refers to a second language teaching approach in which teaching is organized around the content or information that students will acquire, rather than around a linguistic or other type of syllables. CBI can also be seen as an approach to language teaching that integrates the presentation of subject matter, example, mathematics and social studies. These topics or classroom tasks are involved in the context of teaching a second language or foreign language.
Here are 4 different ways that this could be implemented in the classroom. Theme-based model. In this model, select a topic or theme, provide the content for a student to learn. Based on this topic and themes, language teachers extract language activities and engage language students in language practice and content learning simultaneously. Immersion model. This model can be considered as the prototypical content-based approach. In it, English-speaking elementary school students receive the majority of their schooling through the medium of their second language. Adjunct model. In this model, students are enrolled in two linked courses. One, a content course, and the other, a language course. Both courses share the same content base, complementing each other in terms of mutuality coordinated assignment. In this model, teacher tries to engage students in various activities related to the four skills: speaking, listening, reading, and writing, for enhancing a student's knowledge, literacy, and developing cultural understanding and thinking skills. Sheltered model. This model is based on the Canadian model of immersion education. It is a type of CBA model in which both the native speaker and non-native speaker of a particular language follow a regular academic curriculum. Lexical approach is a way of analyzing and teaching language based on the idea that it's made up of lexical units rather than grammatical structures. The units are words, chunk, formed by collocation and fixed phrases. Lewis observed that language consists of grammaticalized lexis, no lexicalized grammar. Let us take a look at this chart. Lexical item and its examples. Words, book, pen. Polywords, by the way, upside down. Collocations, prices fell, rancid butter. Institutionalized utterance, I'll get it, that'll do. Sentences, frames, and head. That is not as adjective as you think. The danger was text frames. In this paper, we will explore, firstly, this chart can clearly prove that in the lexical approach in language, the building block of language learning and communication are not grammar, function, notion, or some other units of planning and teaching, but lexis. That is words and words combinations. In the grammar translation approach, a detailed analysis of grammatical rules and their exceptions is taken as a basis for teaching a second language, and then the knowledge acquired is applied to the translation of sentences and texts from the meta-language to its own and vice versa. The first language serves as a reference system in the acquisition of the second language. Characteristic of grammar translation method. It helps to learn a foreign language and its correct structure. Allows the student to be able to read and write a new language. To enable students to use interchangeable words and phrases. They get to learn new vocabulary and new words. It does not enable students' skill in listening and speaking of foreign language. In conclusion, grammar translation method is nothing but a method of teaching any foreign language in its simplest way. It is one of the oldest methods used since ages to teach Latin and Greek language, and now modern languages too. English as a foreign language can be easily learned with this method.
Hello everyone, I am Rafael Pernia and I'm going to talk about cooperative learning. Cooperative learning is an approach in which teaching gets focused on maximum cooperation. It includes small groups, peers, it includes helping the students to learn in a socially structured exchange of thoughts, opinions, ideas, points of views, etc. Cooperative learning also help them to enrich achievements. It also helps the students to build up connections with each other by cooperation. It basically replaces competitions and get focused on task-based performance. Cooperative learning offers the advantage over teacher-centered classroom methods or teacher-fronted classroom methods, and the goals are opportunity for naturalistic second language acquisition, and it helps them to achieve their goals and to develop successful learning and communication strategies. It enables focused attention to particular items, for example, interactive tasks, An interactive task could be a discussion about a certain topic, about my experiences. Okay, why do you think it would be good to travel to this or to that particular country? Why do you think it happens? Then they can start interacting about this thing. Also, it helps the students to develop communication strategies. Why? Because if someone of my classmates asks a question and I don't have the answer, so I have to try to look for an answer, no matter if it is sustained or not. But at the end of the day, that is what discussion is to give in my points of view, is to give my opinion, thinking on I am right or I'm correct with the answer I'm giving. It crosses mainstream education and ELT. As a theory of learning, it was developed based on the works of Piaget in 1965 and Vygotsky in 1962, who aimed at the role of social interaction to help the students to acquire knowledge by conversing. Where? Well, in a basically social structured performance situation framed by the teacher. So the teacher gives this pedagogical activity, but the most important thing is that the student have or can cooperate to complete the task. Whitehall in 1995 developed the question matrix. What is this? Well, this is an approach to help the students to develop thinking in teaching, or critical thinking in teaching, where the teacher encourages the students to respond in a deeper level. Another example could be, okay, today we're going to talk about pollution. Why do you think that killing cows is not a solution for pollution? So they can start discussing about this kind of things, in which their thoughts and opinions are more important than anything. The other aspect of this is the objective. What is the objective of CLL? Well, the objective of it is to foster cooperation rather than competition. Why? Well, to develop critical thinking skills. And what is the prescribed syllabus? Well, in CLL, there is not a prescribed syllabus. Why? Because it takes activities from different curriculums with the purpose of what? Of cooperative learning. Well, continuing with the second part of my presentation, now it is time of talking about multiple intelligences. What is multiple intelligences, or MI? It is the view of natural human talents where each of us can develop skills naturally among topics, themes, to develop content skills or knowledge skills. MI is also a theory proposed by Gardner in 1993, and the scientific states that this is a cultural-free approach. He also proposes a view of natural human talents. In that sense, he mentions that there is, or he categorizes or states intelligences into 8 intelligences. They can be, or they are, kinesthetic, interpersonal, verbal, linguistic, logical, mathematical, naturalistic, intrapersonal, visual, spatial, and musical intelligence. What is the theory of language and learning applied of MI? Well, after Gardner, some educators like Armstrong interpret it as reframing of education, because Gardner does not get focused on standardized IQ tests, just on the capabilities of each of the students individually. Even in the United States, they indeed develop their educational programs, the educational common cores around MI to help them, the students, to foster their capabilities. The view of Garner as Tilly 2007 mentions that it contrasts markedly with a view that intelligence is based on an unitary or general ability for problem solving. What are the objectives, the syllabus, and the learning activities to be used in MI? Well, the objectives, there is no goal stated in multiple intelligences. In linguistic terms, it basically gets focused on making the students a better learner, independent learner with their own experiences. The syllabus, well, as there is not a specific goal, there is not specific syllabus as such either prescribed or recommended. But last year, 1991, proposes a sequence of 4 stages. The number 1 is awakened intelligence. What is it? Well, through multisensorial experiences, you start the learning experience. The second one is amplified intelligence. What is it? It's by defining and amplifying the definitions and properties of objects. The third one is teach with and for the intelligence. The class might be focused on doing discussions and projects where the students can enhance their knowledge. The fourth one is transfer of intelligence. Well, here the students relay their knowledge and reflect about it with peers. I can be learning about a certain topic in this area in chemistry, and then we can bring in languages. So you can relate or you can connect it. An example could be talking about pollution. CO2 is a polluter, and you study in chemistry. So you can relate, transfer the intelligence from one specific topic knowledge to another one. What are the learning activities? Well, there is multiple. But for example, in mathematical intelligence, they can do or logic, problem, and puzzles. In musical, playing an instrument, how to play an instrument and playing it in live action. And interpersonal can be individualized project. To what extent I'm capable of working alone. And linguistic can be lectures, storytelling, among others. Nicholson Nelson in 1998 described how MI can be used in the individualized project. She lists 5 types of projects. Number 1, multiple intelligent projects. Number 2, curriculum-based projects. Number 3, thematic-based project. Number 4, resource-based project. And the last one, students-based project. In conclusion, MI is in crescendo these days because, teachers, regardless the theoretical perspective, have been creating new works, new research to help the students to not only to learn, but to develop their strengths, becoming them into a higher level of knowledge in different ways. Thank you so much.
According to Richards and Rogers 2001, Krashen and Terrell claim that the natural approach is believed to conform to the naturalistic principles found in successful second language acquisition. The natural approach, published in 1983, joined effort from 2 sides: the pedagogical experiences of Terrell 1977 and Krashen's second language acquisition theory 1981, which include 5 main hypotheses. Acquisition learning hypothesis, where there are 2 ways for second language learners to develop competency in a second or foreign language. acquisition and learning. Acquisition is an unconscious and informal process, and learner conscious process. The monitor hypothesis, where the acquired system has to initiate the speaker utterances and is responsible for fluency, while conscious learning can only serve as a monitor or editor of the language that the learner produces. The natural order hypothesis. It suggests that children acquire their first language in a predictable order of grammatical structures. The input hypothesis. The learner's input must not only be comprehensible but also slightly above their current level of competency. And the last one, the affective filter hypothesis. Krashen perceived the learner's emotional state or attitudes serve as a freely movable filter that allows, hinders, or blocks input required for acquisition. For this approach, the learner are seen as a processor of comprehensible input and the teacher as the primary source of comprehensible input in the target language. Real communication is the basis of class activity, so we can apply activities such as command-based activity, group work activities, game and problem-solving activities. Task-based language teaching, TBLT, is also known as task-based learning or task-based instruction. Its origin is associated with the so-called Malaysian Communicational Syllabus 1975 and the Bangalore Project 1987, but it was in the late 90s when Willis, one of its proponents, suggested this new approach to language teaching that emphasized the use of tasks as the primary unit of instruction. According to Richards and Rogers 2001, TBLT refers to an approach based on the use of tasks as the core unit of planning and instruction in language teaching. Thus, tasks are used as the making element of this approach. In relation to the teacher roles, Bula and Murillo 2019 point out that this should be a task selector, discussion leader, motivator, and facilitator in order to develop communicative competence, while the primary learner's role in TBLT for Richards and Rogers 2001 should be as a group participant, monitor, and risk taker and innovator. With this approach, learners put more emphasis on getting the work done than on the language. This is why this theory is focused on language learning more than language acquisition. TBLT emphasizes meaning over form, but can also provide for learning form. For instance, teachers could apply activities such as Bula and Murillo 2019 points out, discussion tasks, role plays, storytelling, listening, and timelines.
Hello, my name is Andrina Oliveros, and I'm going to be talking to you about neurolinguistics programming, whole language, and content language integrated learning. First, let's begin with neurolinguistics programming. Really, this is not an approach, but it's more of philosophical and psychological approaches here all together mixed up that were created in order to try to make people communicate through positiveness. Like this study originated by analyzing how successful people were able to motivate and change others through language. So by analyzing these people, we can change others and through positiveness, where the others really understand that they have abilities to communicate and foster improvement among others. Now, this approach is more intended to teachers rather than to students. It's more intended to teachers because it tells the teacher that he or she has the ability, the communicative ability, to changing other people. Whole language is an approach that was created by US teachers, and these teachers were concerned with the teaching of language, the English as a second language, teaching it as the first language. Now, in this approach, what they're doing is that they're teaching basically reading and writing comprehension, but in the same way. Students of English as a second language are learning in the same way as first language. Now, this approach was firstly intended for secondary school, but it was proven that it was very useful when beginning with primary school. When children that are learning English as a second language in primary school are taught with the whole language approach, it was actually proven more significant. Because, for example, children that are learning English as a second language, they can adapt easily to the reading and the writing comprehension and all that English language refers to, because it's not only, through the reading, through the writing, you are also analyzing the purpose of the author, you're analyzing grammar, you're putting phonetics, you're doing the whole thing together and not by parts. This is why this approach is called whole language. Content language learning. The initials are CLIL. This approach was developed relatively recently and in Europe due to the demands that society was imposing to the educational system in order to form new students that would be multilingual. For example, in this approach, children in primary school are learning not only their language, their target language, but they're learning two languages besides their mother tongue. So in this case, they're learning three languages together at the same time, integrated with all their other subjects. The idea with this approach is that once the children finish their schools, when they finish and they go into higher education, these children are multilingual children. They can speak two other languages besides their target language in the same way that they speak their target language or mother language, or L1 as you want to say. All in all, we can conclude by saying that all of the approaches that have been analyzed in this video have served a reason, and the purpose of this has been to improve English language teaching.